This is On Edge by Angelo Carbone, and it's a really cool balancing effect. It looks beautiful. I'm sure you've seen plenty of videos on social media, but it also has some drawbacks, and I'm here to tell you about them. I want to let you know that I bought On Edge with my own money. What is On Edge? Here's what happens with On Edge. You build a house of cards, and then you build tension by methodically removing cards one at a time. And just when you think it'll come crashing down, like pulling the bottom block of a shaky Jenga tower, your house of cards will impossibly teeter on a single point, the laws of gravity momentarily suspended. Even as the performer, every instinct within you will scream that this should not be possible, and yet somehow your house of cards will dance on a knife's edge. Under your full control, an effortless touch from you will reignite gravity. The fragile house of cards will come cascading down in a visually stunning fashion. This is a fitting finale to a surreal performance. What we'll be receiving if you decide to purchase On Edge, well, you'll be receiving this package right here, and inside of here is the deck that contains the gimmick cards that you need to perform On Edge, along with some other materials and some training wheels that I'll get a little bit more into later.
You're teasing me.
You also receive a link to a Murphy's Magic hosted tutorial video inside of this package taught by Javier Flymeyer. Javier is going to be walking you through what you receive, how to perform the effect, how to set it up, how to build the small bit that you need to build in order to perform this to a real audience. He's going to walk you through how to use your training wheels. He's going to talk about how to repair your gimmick in case something happens to it, because it will. And he's also going to talk about an alternate ending. There are multiple camera angles. It's a very well done tutorial video, and it all lasts for a little over an hour. How difficult is On Edge to perform? I'm sure you've watched other reviews on the internet, and you've learned that this is not the easiest trick in the world. It is going to take some practice, and it's honestly going to take some skill, not just the gimmicks that are involved. You do need to make sure that you are balancing these cards when you put them together. Obviously, it's easier than if you were just doing this with like impromptu cards. Wouldn't be possible, right? Balancing on that weird fulcrum type thing, and people think that it's just science. But no, that needs gimmick cards. Now, it is easier. As I said, you can't, obviously you can put a couple cards together, but you can't do that. It's easier even for the first half where you're just building the pyramid, the house of cards. That is easier to do with these gimmick cards. So that part's not like the hardest part in the world, but it is going to take some practice. I'd say this is an intermediate level trick. Building the castle is half of it, and then deconstructing the castle by pulling out those cards, that's the other half of it. And together, it's not the easiest thing in the world. Obviously not the hardest trick you could be doing out there, but it does take a little bit of practice. And once you get down building the pyramid, then you pretty much have that part down, and then it becomes pulling the cards out that gets a little bit more difficult. But it is going to take some practice. I want you to know that. To be honest, I was pretty frustrated when I was practicing this and even performing it to the camera. I was practicing this with the training wheels for a while and thought that I was ready to graduate to the next level. I was not, but also by the same token, I kind of had exhausted what I could do with the training wheels, and I kind of needed to just go straight into the next level. So in a way, I kind of forced myself into it. And when I graduated to the next level and took off the training wheels, I got a bit frustrated, especially with performing to the camera. Once I had practiced this without the training wheels, I thought that I had it down. And then when I started doing it to the camera, I guess I'm like kind of a perfectionist. Like, that performance that you saw isn't even one that I'm incredibly proud of, but it is the one that I went with based off of. I had several performances in which it all went well, but there were like a few things that I would have changed about it if I could perfect it. And I'm trying to get better about, hey, it's okay. It's just a performance for magicians in a review, and it doesn't always have to be 110% perfect, because you just need to go ahead and include the performance because people want to see it. So I hope that you understand, and I hope that you were glad that I included the performance, because I almost didn't, because I was getting very frustrated with how my performances were turning out. In fact, my gimmick broke on me twice while I was trying to perform this to the camera, and I had to repair it, and then I got even more frustrated. The point is, you need to practice this, because it's going to be frustrating, and whenever you go out and perform it live, just make sure that you have put the time in, and you know that you're going to do this with 100% accuracy and nail it. So what do I mean by the gimmick broke? Well, the gimmick that's included is the training wheels version, and the gimmick that you're using in performance when you're performing to real people or to camera, that is the version you have to make at home. They do include majority of the stuff already made, but there is one thing that you have to do, which I wish they would have already done for the first time, Like I said, you will have to do it a couple times because it's a delicate material that will break on you if you're using this. And with me practicing with it, I broke it a few times. And then with me performing to camera, I broke it a couple times. So just beware, hey, you do have to repair some things with this. There are some delicate materials involved. They do include that material in the packaging, so you have enough of it to repair it several times. But eventually, you're going to need to buy more, and if you're into this kind of stuff, you probably already have it at your house, but I do want to make you aware of all that stuff. How long will it take to make this thing that you have to make? It will not take long, maybe 10 minutes the first time you do it, and then once you get it down, it'll take, 2 or 3 minutes. Is On Edge examinable? It's examinable in the way that your eyes can look at it and examine it, and they can probably do a 360. I'd say it looks best from either the front or the direct back, because once you start getting on the sides, because of some of the coloring of the cards, you can maybe see something if you're in the correct light or the correct environment. So personally, I would say just keep your audience in front of you for this. There's your angles. But is it examinable? Well, no. Your eyes, like I said, yes, but not the actual cards. The cards are not examinable. Some of the cards involved could be examined by the spectators, and they probably wouldn't find anything, but some of them cannot be examined at all. And personally, if not all of them can be examined, and you're using, these, 15 cards or something? I don't know how many it is, but you're using these cards, you don't want to just hand out a couple and then be like, all right, here's my other cards sitting to the side. Please don't ask or touch them because they can't be examined like those can. No, nobody wants to do that. So if you're going to have an examine, just switch all of them. Do a packet switch or something. And honestly, you could have people walk all the way around this, but you do run that risk of if they're too close and they see things at a certain angle and the right light, it's like, you could see something. What's the setup and reset like for On Edge? Well, I talked about the initial setup for your gimmick, and then rebuilding that. I say rebuild. It's not that tough. It's not like you're having to put a ton of work into building a gimmick every time. You have to repair your gimmick, really. That's what you're doing. And just because of this material, it's going to break on you. That's how this works, right? If you use this all the time, you know what I'm talking about. It's just one of those things you got to do. With that said, if you want to take the training wheels and turn that into a real-time gimmick that you can use in front of your spectators, you can take the training wheels off of those couple card gimmicks that you already have and say, I want 2 real-time gimmicks instead of a training wheels pack and a real-time gimmick. So that way you can just carry around 2, and not that you're going to do this walk around, but if you want to have 2 on you, in case something were to happen, you would have 2. And honestly, that's what I suggest. I'm probably going to take the training wheels and turn them into another set, so that way if I'm performing this, which I'll get into in a little bit, I don't see myself performing this except in my parlor shows, which is kind of what this is meant for. You're not going to do this walk around. But with that said, that is the setup. You got to make sure that your gimmick is ready to go. I would carry 2 just to be sure. And then you got to make sure that the cards are in the right order and ready to go as well, which that needs to be done outside of your spectators and ahead of time. And that doesn't take long at all. Honestly, I got really fast at doing it because I basically have this order memorized. It's not a hard order to memorize. I mean, it's practically numerical, but you got to know certain parts of certain cards, go here and there. And by the end of all the practicing I did, and I even performed it to a couple friends before I made this video, and it was like, oh, I can reset this thing quick because I've done it so much. And you're probably going to run into that experience as well. Is there anything you have to supply with this? There is something you have to supply, but I'm sure you have it at your house if you're a magician, or even honestly just a regular person has this at their house. So you shouldn't have to worry about going out to buy anything. You should have this at your place. Let me elaborate on where you would perform this. This is something you do in a stage show or a parlor show. It's not something you do walk around, right? You're probably not going to be walking around building this on people's tables. It's just not a thing. Plus, I'll get into a couple of the negatives here. You do have to have a textured surface to do this, so you can't just do it on a table, right? Like my desk right here in front of me. Pretty slick. I had to put my close-up mat onto my desk, so that way I can build this card castle in front of you and it not slip and slide everywhere. You're probably not going to carry around your close-up mat unless you have a mat from Pat's Mats, which you can carry those around pretty easily. But even then, who's going to whip out a close-up mat and throw it on the table at a restaurant and be like,
let me show you this trick.
Hey, you might do it. And honestly, more power to you if you do. But that's not me. Here's a quick plug, and this is not sponsored by Pat's Mats or anything, but this is the close-up mat that I carry to all the conventions I go to, so that way if I want to sit down on a table and jam with somebody, I got it. It's this thing right here. It opens, folds, it goes into a backpack perfectly, and it's a pretty decent-sized mat right here. So I love this thing. Pat's Mats. definitely recommend a travel mat. And for on edge, this would really be helpful if you were carrying this around going to different tables. Let's talk about some more negatives and things that you need to know about before you decide to purchase this. I've already talked about how the cards can't be examined, which they could be switched with a packet switch if you like to do that, so you can get around that if you'd like to. Another thing is the textured surface I just talked about, and another thing that I've mentioned is the delicate material that you'll have to repair. Those are things that you need to be aware. If you're performing outside, there's a couple clips of people performing outside in the trailer. This needs to be very, very carefully done, okay? If you walk outside and it's windy, walk back in or go somewhere else, because this thing's not going to stand in wind. If I was standing right here and I blew at this card castle, this thing's falling over. It's not going to stay up like that, right? Like, it's not just... My camera battery just died. I've been rambling for so long, and I performed this trick. It took me so many attempts, so that way I'd finally found one that I was somewhat confident in. And now, my camera just died. You know what? There's been a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and money, because this was not a cheap trick, to go into this video. I hope you appreciate it. If you do, please like this video because it'll mean a lot, and leave a positive comment. I'm struggling. I'm struggling right now. With all that said, if you're outside and there's a gust of wind, or if you're inside and you blow at it, or someone tries to jokingly blow it over inside, they can easily do that. It does not matter. It will fall over. This thing is not going to hold up like forever, right? It's not like this thing is sitting up here like this forever, and there's nothing that can knock it over. No, if I went, this thing's going down. You got to make sure you present this properly, because some people will just go, oh, that's cool. I didn't know you could do that. And it's like, no, it's not science. There's not some secret fulcrum point that people think that cards balance like this. No, they could not do this at home with just regular playing cards. That's not how it works. It's not a cool science magic trick. There is gimmickry involved. There is magic. There is a method behind this. And the last negative I want to mention is the ad copy. In the ad copy, it says no skill required, and that could not be farther from the truth. I mean, it says no skill required, but yet you have to actually take some skill to build this card tower, this castle, this pyramid, and then whenever you actually remove cards, that takes skill and practice, because you got to figure out, you got to make sure you know what order to remove these cards. And at what point do you put the cards down? And there's a lot of stuff that goes into this that takes skill. It takes practice. And I really just think that's false advertising. It's a straight up lie of no skill required. Like, don't advertise like that. Even in the Murphy's Magic YouTube channel videos by Bo Kramer, that lovely, handsome man, he even says it's intermediate. Like, it's for intermediate skilled magicians. Yet the ad copy says no skill required. So I don't freaking get that. I don't know who wrote the ad copy and why they put that, but that's not true. Let's talk about some positives. I know I just rambled on about a whole bunch of things you should be aware of and some negatives, but there are truly several positives with this, and I do ultimately think this is a really cool trick, and here's why. If you did this in a parlor show or a stage show, and you set this to music and had a nice story to go with it, I think this could be amazing. I mean, phenomenal. If you practice this and get this down and add it to your show with the right timing and some music, maybe some lights or something like a spotlight or some type of mood, set the mood right, set the story, this could be incredible. And honestly, for a social media video, this will be just as cool without, a ton of story around it. But just with some nice music and, you building this card castle in front of someone and then slowly taking those cards out like a Jenga tower. I don't know, you could figure out tons and tons of stories to go with this. You could talk about a Jenga tower that you used to build as a kid and how, you still try to find some of that childhood magic inside of you, even at the age that you are. And I feel like you could be really creative with your storytelling with this and create a really impactful piece for your audience. Another positive is that this is a creative method. I love the method behind this. It's really cool. It's really creative. And when you perform it yourself, even when you're practicing, you just kind of want to stare at it. I found myself staring at this thing several times when I was practicing it, and I finally got it to, stand up the proper way and all this stuff. And I'm just like, this looks so cool. And it does. And it feels like you're performing a magic trick to yourself whenever you get this final product. And it's great. But kind of similarly to Joshua J's balance, there's a lot of methods at work. It's not just one thing that's making this happen. It's several things. And I really like that. I think it's a creative method. I know probably nobody cares that much, but like a layperson isn't going to care. But you as a magician might think it's cool, but yeah, cool method. Another positive about the method is that they teach you in depth how this works, and they're showing you why this works and where certain things are placed and for what reason. And with that said, if you really wanted to, you could take these cards apart and build your own version with a custom deck of cards if you'd like to. It would take some time and effort, but you very well could do that if you would like to, based off of just looking at the cards that you have and duplicating that. I think it could be really cool to make your own custom version of On Edge with your own deck of cards that you want to customize it to. The last positive I want to talk about is the training wheels. I mentioned them earlier, and I think that it's a great idea. I'm really glad that they added it into the package. It really does make it so much easier to practice, and it makes it so much easier to follow along in the tutorial video. I think that it makes this a better product overall and makes it so much easier to learn. So thank you so much for including training wheels. That is honestly something that more tricks using things similarly to this should probably include. What should On Edge retail as? Well, currently it retails for $85 US, and for all the stuff you receive, it is a pretty good price for you getting these gimmicks made, ready to go, except for the one thing you need to make so that way you could perform it in real life to real people. But you get the training wheels made. Really wish they would have made the other thing just so that way you could not have to worry about it the first time. I think that would be awesome. But for $85, I would really like everything to be complete, but because it does come almost complete and everything inside of it took a lot of time to make, I get why it has to have a high price point. I do. I get it. But with all that said, this is not just for the average magician at home that doesn't go out and perform professionally, or at least for money somewhat, or, does like 1 or 2 walk-around gigs a year, and that's the extent of their performing to the public. That's just not what this is, because one, it's not good for walk-around. If you do 1 parlor show a year and you think this is going to make your show great, and you add it to your show and you love it, then yeah, I highly recommend adding it. But it's not something you're going to get to walk around and perform. It's not something you're going to be doing at a restaurant or out on the streets, really, unless you're carrying around a table and a close-up mat or some type of textured surface you can perform this on. So with all that said, yes, it is a fair price, but you do need to make sure that if you're going to buy this, you have a use for it, or if you have the $85 to just spend on a magic trick that you don't perform, that you just want to practice it for fun, hey, if you can afford it, go for it. All you. But for someone that doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of money for magic and just doesn't really perform, parlor or stage magic, this is probably something you need to pass on. But with all that said, it is a really cool trick, and it looks so cool when you perform this to yourself and to other people when you get this down. If you'd like to purchase On Edge, there's a link down below in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching all the way through to the end of this video. I hope that you learned a lot about On Edge, and if you did, please let me know in the comments down below. It really does help when I hear if these videos really do help people. I'm not just making them to a crowd of 10 people that don't really care. So I really do enjoy hearing your feedback. If you have any more questions that I didn't answer in this review, please leave them down below, and I will do my best to answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much once again for watching, and if you'd like to watch another review here on the channel, you should click this video because it's a stellar one that I think you would absolutely love.